So today I have a new format for the tutorials, and I hope this works better. I have like the session broke down into steps, and then you can just comment each step in near the flag. So right now, just to make sure everything works, we're in the right folder, and if you go cargo run, it should say error handling calculator. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to explore some of the different error handling concepts in Rust, and we're going to do that through a super basic calculator. So now that this kind of step zero everything works is done, we comment that section out, and then we comment the flag section in. And if you go cargo run again, it will ask you, save the file, cargo run again, it will ask you for your name. So my name is Josh, and then it will say hello Josh. Now we're introducing a new crate called Dialogger. Yesterday we built a kind of markdown blog creator, I don't know what we'd call it, with clap, and clap is like a command line argument tool, and Dialogger is a tool that like makes getting, as opposed to instructions from the command line, just the actual text you put in, so that it's more like an interactive chat experience. And it basically replaces the input function that we have been creating in previous tutorials. So instead of going input function and then taking the args and then indexing on the args and then flushing out the argument, now we just say let name is a type of string, and I want the input, which is what is it called? Is it a method? Why doesn't it tell me? Method, which is a method on the Dialogger crate, and it could be a trait. I'm going to call it a method. Implementation, functionality. I need to learn this. You need to run cargo add Dialogger to get this, and then you can interact with the text, which is basically taking whatever the command line value is. In this case I said Josh, and then it unwraps it, and then the value is stored in name. Now unwrapping is something we've been doing but haven't really discussed, and the unwrap method creates something called a result, and a result has the success value of whatever it is that we want and any possible errors. So whenever we unwrap something, we're saying that this might also error, and rather than just giving out the result as the name value, we're giving out a result object that has the success situation and then also a possible error associated with this operation. Okay, we've ran it, everything works. Let's comment this back in and then comment out section 2. So in section 2, we're going to use Dialogger select, and what that does is it lets us define a bunch of options, and then you can like tab down or use the arrow keys and say select whichever one you want. Then it will take that selection, and then we can match against it, and we say if you select 0, then index 0, so the first option, we'll just say you chose add, you chose divide, exit, and we'll keep going round and round in a loop until you exit. So we're putting a loop in there. So let's see what this looks like. Again, you have to save the file. Cargo run. So now we have the options add, divide, exit. So let's add, and it said you chose add. Now we can divide, and it says you chose divide, and now we can exit. So that's how the select component or method works with Dialogger. Cool. let's comment this in now. And then let's comment step 3 out. Now in step 3, we're going to use the input and the select methods from Dialogger. And we're going to add, divide, exit. We're going to grab the selection and we're going to match against the selection. Except this time we're passing it to a function called parseTwoNumbers. Now in parseTwoNumbers, we take two F64 values. So that is a number, a floating point number. So we don't take in, this is what comes out after the arrow. So we will get a result, and a result means that there's a success value and an error value. And the success value would be two floating point numbers. And the possible error is a parse float error, which means that a number, like we were trying to convert something to a number, a floating point number, and there was an error around that. Now, we want to get our first variable, a. We want to ask the user for the first number, and then get the result. And then we want to parse the result. And if there's a problem, we want to propagate the error up. That's what this little question mark does. We want to propagate the error up to whoever called this function. And in that case, that would be this 0 selection on the match function. Control flow, I don't know what a match is. Statement, expression. So the error would hit this error channel and say X error, and then whatever the error is. And then we get the same for the second value, where we say enter a second number. Now, in the first case, I said this is a string, get the input, then parse it. Whereas now I'm saying, this is exactly the same, it's just a different way of writing it. Now I'm saying I want B to be a number, and I want to take an input, which will be of a type of a string. And interestingly, this syntax where you put this in is called turbofish. And then I unwrap the value. And then I get the output. Okay? So let's see if this works. I want to add. The first number is 1, the second number is 4, and it says your result is 1 plus 4, 5. So let's try that again. Let's add. First number is 1. And then the second number, let's say the second number is going to be B. It said error, invalid float literal. So that means that the error here has been thrown up to here where it says X error, and then whatever the error type is, which happens to be invalid float literal. And we can change this so that we know that this is where this is. It should now say X, the error is invalid float literal. So if we exit, make sure the file is saved, cargo run, add first number is 1, second number is B, and X the error is. So it's hitting this point. That's what this question mark does. Now, if I don't want to propagate the error up, I can also put an expect handler on, and what that'll do is give me an error. It will stop the program and give me an error at this stage. So let's close the program, cargo run. I want to add, first number is 1, second number is B, and now it panicked and it said failed to read the second input. So I get to control the error that comes at this point. I prefer the other way of doing it. And if we weren't parsing, we could put the expect value just there. So you can use expect as an alternative to wrap. So unwrap or expect this error. But we want to use unwrap, and we want to parse, and then we want to propagate up. Perfect. That all seems to be working. Let's go to the next step. So I'm going to put that there so you have all of the different variations. I don't know. I think that's better. I explained expect in the video. Now the final step. In the final step, we input and select. Again, we use the parse error float time. We're going to refer to it. And this comes from the standard library. We're asking for an input. We get the options. And the only difference here is that in the second option, when we divide, we're checking if it parses correctly. And if it does parse correctly, then we're checking if the second number is 0. And if the second number is 0, then we want to throw a divide by 0 error. So just to make sure we know what's happening, let's put error 1 and error 2. And then in the divide method, function, we're taking in 2 floating point numbers, and we're returning a result that is a floating point number and a string, as opposed to a float parse error custom error type. We're saying if b is equal to 0, then the error is cannot divide by 0. And we're defining this as a string, and we're putting in our own custom error messaging. So let's try that out. Cargo run. This time we want to divide, and the first number is going to be 2, and the second number is going to be 0. And it's like, look, error number 2, you cannot divide by 0, and I just mark this 2 so that we don't confuse it with 1. What I meant to do is say, this is 1, and this is error 2. And these are different error messages, because the first one's really just checking if it parsed correctly. So if it doesn't parse correctly, we should get the parsing error message. So cargo run. This time I want to divide 2 by b, error invalid float literal, and it's error 1, which is this branch, not the nested error branch. Okay? So that's it. Those are different ways of handling errors. Unwrap is how you get the value out of the thing you're trying to do. It's the happy path only way to get the value. Great for prototyping. But then if you want to propagate an error value up, you use the question mark. And then if you want to define what happens if it's okay, and you want to define what happens if there's an error, then you use a match statement. And then, as opposed to unwrap, which is for prototyping, I don't know if you would say in production, I'm not quite at that point, you would say expect. And expect is where you define the error, where you unwrap, but also define the error. And you get to put a clear error message when it does panic. That's it.